All right, here we go for the Prospect Minute. Myself and the Prospect Don, how are you today?
I'm great. I haven't talked a lot of hockey in a very long time, and I am definitely sweating too. How are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, it's summer and there's not much going on, although Helenka's starting soon, so that's good.
Yeah.
So that's nice. All right. So let's talk about a couple of guys. We'll talk about Jonathan Lekkerimaki first from the Vancouver Canucks. He's in their system. I think he was drafted 15th overall. I had him
Mhm.
ranked higher. My initial thoughts on him were definitely a goal scorer. Wasn't the fastest guy, wasn't the biggest guy, but I always felt like he was smart. And the more I watch him, even from what he did last year, he still knows how to get on two-on-ones. He still knows how to get behind the defense, and he's dangerous when he's on a two-on-one, man. That puck's on his stick, it's awfully quick.
Yeah, he's a really good shot. He's also pretty good on defense. And playing in the SHL, I always feel like it prepares these prospects to play better in the AHL. He had some moments this year in the NHL. He had 6 points in 24 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. I thought that he did pretty good. It showed that he could play in his 5'11 frame, 172 pounds. I still think that there's more to gain muscle wise, but the
Yeah.
thing is, his shot is NHL ready. Um, when you have a shot like that's that heavy, it's pretty quick, honestly, as well. So I think that he's going to be able to deceive and fool goalies. I thought that, like you did, that he was should have been drafted a little higher than 15. I was actually kind of surprised about that. I think that the Canucks have done a good job getting good value on their picks recently, and I think that in the 2022 draft there was a lot of players to pick from, but he was one of those guys that I was surprised. Like I said, under 6 feet, right winger, or winger forward, you can play him versatile. But the
Yep.
thing is, like, I think that he's going to be able to translate pretty well. I don't see a scenario where it's like a Lucas Reichel where he plays well in the AHL, which he has, and then can't really produce because that shot is NHL ready. So I do see some translatability going into the NHL.
Yeah, you figure faster, stronger. If it's this year, great. If it's next year, great. Or it'll be soon. And Canucks fans should be really happy because this guy is a heck of a player. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's that. Again, it's easy to kind of get on the Canucks for their failures in the draft, but this is one of their real positives.
I do like Braden Coots a lot. Well, for that draft pick, 15 overall, and
Too.
obviously 3 years later they had the 15th pick. So like 2022, they had the 15th pick. Now they had the 15th pick. I think that they knocked it out of the ballpark with both of those players. So I am excited, as well as the Quinn Hughes, them getting Quinn Hughes when Boquist was taken. I feel like that was a absolute really good player. I obviously wanted Quinn Hughes for the Blackhawks, so I'm still a little upset about that.
You
But
should
yeah,
be. I mean,
yeah.
here's what I would say about that. I remember watching Boquist. I guess it was in the Four Nations, 4 or 5 nations. Might have been five at that point in Michigan. And I thought Boquist, yeah, he's got a great shot, great on the power play, not great anywhere else. Wasn't physical,
Yeah.
wasn't great at retrieving pucks, wasn't, just he wasn't really good in a lot of 5-on-5 situations. And so I didn't buy into the hype.
Yeah, I didn't like him as much as consensus. Even in the prospect poll, people were talking about this guy was going to be the number one defenseman on the team, a lot of things, but he was very raw. I think that he had a lot of missing pieces in his game. When you're taking a player like him and you traded him for Seth Jones, I think, and for multiple first round picks, it was because you kind of saw that the floor just wasn't there and his upside might not have been as high as you kind of imagined as well. So I'm hoping that's not the same thing with a Kevin Korchinski as well, but it's different regimes, different types of players. I think that the floor is a little higher for Kevin Korchinski. But yeah, I was talking to Cam Robinson, and when they got Quinn Hughes, he celebrated very hard at the draft, and he wasn't
I'm
supposed
sure.
to, but he let out a little scream. I was getting chirped from Marco D'Amico and about the Vaslav Nestersil pick at the draft because I was excited a little bit, and yeah, Cam Robinson said that he was also excited with Quinn Hughes because this guy was much higher on his board. So yeah, I
Yeah,
I
I
like
mean,
what. Yeah.
here's what I would say. Um, I've only written one guy and my website, Sportsology, saying that he's a generational talent. That was Quinn Hughes. Now that was
Oh, wow.
a year or two before the draft. Um, I actually rated Dobson a little higher at the draft. I don't mind doing that because I felt like even though I felt like Quinn Hughes was going to be generational, at that point in time, I felt like Dobson was a little ahead of him, and I think he was. And I still think Dobson's terrific. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be big in Montreal. I think the Islander fans are going to be like, we got a good deal in the draft, but we lost a good player." But we have to be fair. The Blackhawks couldn't have gotten Hughes. They probably even,
Yep.
for all we know, they could have traded up. But
Yep.
here's the problem. I would have taken Bouchard or Dobson too over Boquist every day of the week. I'm not being, flippant about this. People can go look on my website. They can see how I rank guys. Like that's just what I would have done.
Can I ask about Quinn Hughes being generational? What did you see in his game that kind of labeled him in your eyes as generational? Because he obviously is, in terms of generational.
Yeah, what I saw was in the with the when he was playing at the NTDP, I saw a guy that had elite vision more than I had seen in the last like decade. Like the kind of vision where it's like he's got the puck and he knows where everybody else should be, is going to be, gets the puck up fast. Obviously, he was a really good skater, but that vision and passing was just, even at a younger age, was unbelievable. And you can see what it is now. Like now it's
Yeah.
just a laser when he passes it. And, he could dissect you anytime he's bringing the puck up the ice. Like he's a threat every time he has the puck.
Yeah, that was great. Great analysis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. Because that's just one of those things. But we'll see if I'm right about Dobson. I mean, I still really am high on him. So, but anyhow, we
Yeah.
get off the beaten path there. So let's talk about Frank Nazar.
Mhm.
Frank Nazar, I really like. He's a really great kid. And I remember when he had I think it was a knee injury, and he had to go into Michigan, kind of like, I think he
Mhm.
made it back to the playoffs. And I remember covering that regional, and I was like, wow, Nazar looks like he's back. And then I saw him at, I think it was World Junior Camp, and I wrote about him. And what I liked about Nazar at that point was he was hitting guys. So it's like, wait a minute, Frank Nazar is no longer looked at as small. He put on like 12, 13 pounds of muscle. He already
Yeah.
was fast and he already had a great shot. So at that point, I knew that Kirby Doc trade was a disaster, but I knew it was bad that day. Like in Montreal, I was like, this is a bad trade. And when they took Nazar, I was like, this is the smartest thing the Blackhawks have done in a while as far as in the draft, turning that into something immediate. And now you're going to start to see that. People are going to start to see that. And Nazar is a cut above. I don't care about his size. This is, again, another guy. We're talking about some smaller guys here. And yes, we have to acknowledge that maybe they are the anomalies. But I still think there's a few more smaller guys that sometimes just need that chance, too.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Frank Nazar coming out, going into the draft. I know that I was watching a podcast with, and Cam Robinson was on it as well. And Elite Prospects was very high on him. It was him and Logan Cooley, the two guys that
Yep,
they were
I
high
was
on.
on
And
that.
Cam Robinson was actually higher on Frank Nazar. And Logan Cooley at the time was the number one prospect in the NHL too. So, I mean, he went back on, but his thoughts on Frank Nazar never changed. This guy should not have fallen that far. I think that if you look at the Blackhawks taking Frank Nazar at 7 and Korchinski at 13, or Sam Renzel at 13 and Korchinski at 25, they the Blackhawks got two maybe star contributors on their team. And Frank Nazar to me kind of reminds me of what Patrick Sharp could have done, like what he did do on the Blackhawks in those championship runs. I do believe that he might be more of a point producer early on because it took Patrick Sharp a little bit of time to get going. But
Mhm.
Frank Nazar has an exceptional speed. I mean, you can see that he had about a breakaway a game, and a lot of times, there was just some incredible saves that had happened. I remember Mackenzie Blackwood looked like Martin Brodeur, like when he had three breakaways and Frank Nazar didn't score one of them. This guy produced pretty well, and he didn't really get any bounces. So I really like Frank Nazar. Him playing at Michigan, I was really excited about. I love Michigan's program. I
Mhm.
think that they do a really good job. Michael Hage is one of those players.
Oh,
Really
yeah.
excited for Malcolm Spence. I could go down on the line. But I really liked what he did. But same with Fantilli. But I was a little worried when Frank Nazar got injured and the time he missed because he missed a full year of development.
Oh yeah.
So he actually played pretty well during the playoffs, but you could see that he was not to full speed. He was timid. He was still afraid to get hurt. But like you said, he did gain a lot of muscle very quickly. You saw a different player.
Yeah,
When you see Frank Nazar play now, you could see that he can translate most of his skills to the NHL at a very young age. That's kind of scary. Um,
it is.
I didn't
So
actually assume that.
yeah, so I was on, the Elite Prospects call. I am looking at my 2022 final rankings. It looks like it's my final. And I had Frank Nazar at 10. So I was also really high on him. And so, when he got picked at 13, I was like, this is a deal, man. And it is. I still think he could play center. Like I'm not backing off of that either yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that he could actually be 2C. The thing is it's like a Will Smith issue. Will Smith showed really great promise and chemistry with Macklin Celebrini this year. And now they got, you know, Misa, but that we've heard Mike Greer say that they want to play him at 2C. It's
Mhm.
very similar with Frank Nazar. Is they just picked up Anton Frandel, but it's going to be a year before he comes in. But is Anton Frandel going to be that 2C, or is he going to play wing for with Bedard?
He
Because
might.
at the combine, he said, "What position do you want to be?" Anything Bedard's not. So I really like that answer. You would have two snipers. I actually tweeted out the other day, like they would be the snipe bros, like the splash bros,
Mhm.
with Frandel and Bedard. But can you put two under 6 foot centers as your top two centers in the playoffs? I think that it might be a little, I think you're going to need to beef up some size. So that's why I think that they took the risk on Vasilov and Mason West.
Mhm.
Uh, but both of those players have like lower, they have lower floors to the top six than some players because we don't just know what they're going to do. But I do think Vasilov has a floor in the NHL. But to go back to the point of Frank Nazar, I think that he had really good chemistry with Bedard this year. You see that speed and you see the lack of explosion that Bedard had. And I think that if Bedard comes into camp again, in which he's been working on with a lot more explosion, they're going to actually work better together this year. Because like Frank Nazar would have been up at the ice, and then you would see Connor Bedard at like mid ice or center ice. And I just feel like that would kind of just take away from what Frank Nazar was doing this year. So I like you said too, you were very high on him, had him top 10. I had him as well, top 10. I know that Elite Prospects came out with a video. I think it was David St. Louis at the time, but he does incredible work. He
Yeah,
said
David's
that
great.
this guy, yeah, he said that this guy had the most skill in the entire class. So that was in 2022. I think that the Blackhawks did get a steal. And I like that we were just talking about Noah Dobson because Noah Dobson was obviously traded from the Islanders to the Habs, which was three-way trade basically to get the Blackhawks to get Kirby Doc because it was Romanov for the 13th pick and then the
Something like
13th
that.
pick for Kirby Doc. So and the Blackhawks also got Gavin Hayes, which is a really good depth prospect. And
Mhm.
I know that the Blackhawks like Gavin Hayes a lot more than we talk about him in Blackhawks Twitter or media. I know that they really like him. He's performed really well. So that trade they hit it out of the ballpark. I think when you're a rebuilding team, you kind of have to do that. You have to get lucky with your prospects. But
You do.
taking guys with the most skill in the class, I think that that's the best thing you can do when you're a rebuilding team. So I could talk about Frank Nazar for a long time.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm going to read you a quote because I think it's interesting with Frank Nazar. And this was back at that camp, December 22nd, 2023 on Full Press. Um, so he wrote that he was talking about getting back with skating. Oh, yeah, it's nice. I like to use my skating and take advantage. It's nice to have that extra space because he's talking about international play. A lot of good players on the team. He he also talked about where is this one other quote? Oh yeah, being able to keep up with your line mates is a big part of the game. You can't score a goal 1 on 5.
Mm.
So just what you were talking about, is now the challenge for him because he's playing with a Bedard. It's not that he's not a good skater. It's just that Connor Bedard is Connor Bedard. So now something that he talked about a few years ago is now his challenge again, and
Interesting.
he'll meet that. And he'll meet that. I don't have any qualm with that. As far as playoffs, I don't worry about Connor Bedard. So if you want to forget about, take that out of the equation about worried about two centers under 6 foot or whatever in the playoffs. You always are going to have some other bigger centers down the line who you could throw in there for faceoffs, defensive zone faceoffs, and that's fine. I mean, that's what you could do. That's how you can get away from that. So I'm not worried about that.
Do you think that the Blackhawks will win a Stanley Cup with Connor Bedard?
That's a good question. I think they have a possibility of. I don't think it's going to happen in the next year, but I think 2 or 3 years down the line, if everything keeps going the way it's going, it should. But I do worry about Blackhawks player development. I haven't liked it lately. So I feel like that has to get kicked up a notch.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good answer. Um, and the one of the things that I wanted to ask, because it's kind of like a circulating hot topic right now, is Blackhawks rebuild versus Sharks rebuild. I got to talk to Max Miller from
Yeah.
Sharks Hockey Digest, who does incredible work, and we
Yes.
were kind of going through both prospect pools. But like just from an outsider's perspective, do you kind of have like a thought on who has been building correctly? Because the Sharks took some incredible upside swings this year too, with Simon Wang and
Yeah.
they got Ravensburg in. The Blackhawks did obviously as well with Voslov and Mason West. So, like, if you were a fan that was a fan of prospect pools, who would you rather have right now?
I'm putting the Sharks a little ahead of the Blackhawks because of the goaltending. I feel like they have a little bit more. They've got Askarov and they've got Ravensburgen for down the line
And Harabel. Yeah.
and Harabel. And I like Harabel, but one of those three will be really good. I have no doubt about it. I do worry about the Blackhawks. Like if Spencer Knight is not going to be that guy after everything that he's been corrected with, where are they falling back on? We talked about it
Yeah.
this last draft. They haven't been drafting goalies.
No, unless it's a seventh round swing,
Yeah, but
which
I
they did
mean,
this year.
those
But
are tough. So that's no, but again, if I'm a Blackhawks fan, they could possibly correct that in free agency. If Knight all of a sudden doesn't look like the right guy, or he's going to be a backup, then next year you can correct that in free agency. So it's not that far fetched, but it's still 2, 3 years away, I think.
mhm. I think that the problem that the Blackhawks had was they missed their opportunity getting a starter or 1A, 1B when they took Adam Guyan, 35 overall, because they
Yeah.
took the first skater and first goalie in that class, which I don't think has happened in a long time. So I thought it was interesting because you had guys like Fowler coming
Yeah.
out. Harabel was big. I haven't really heard like elite from Harabel. Like anyone that I talk to, it's just that he's been developing at like on an average pace, average
Right.
development. We haven't seen that
Yeah, I
inflection
remember he
point. I
came
think
over for another country, played in the USHL. He was, there's a lot of moving parts there. He's a big guy. I do like him personally, and so I do think he could and I like the way he plays. But I do think, yeah, right now development is a little slow. I think that's fair. But I don't know if that's the worst thing. Goalies sometimes take till
yeah,
24, 25 anyhow.
yeah, you see what the Columbus Blue Jackets did at pick 20 with Andrianov, who just signed a 2030 contract.
Yeah, I mean, so that really is a perfect example of what could happen there. And he won't be there till 2030. He'll come over sooner. But I look at Chicago and I'm like, yeah, we got to see where the goaltending lies. I'm not worried about a couple of, undersized centers. They're going to have size all around. They're going to have other guys on the wing who could even take the face off, like you talked about already. So that part doesn't bother me. They just need to make sure. I mean, if Knight's the guy, then they could be off and running quicker. So that's going to be a big thing for him this year to see if he could really grab hold of that.
Yeah, it's going to actually be interesting to see what his like extension is going to be too. Because if he gets that 7 year, 8 year deal, then I think that it shows the Blackhawks really believe in him. And you lock up a guy till he's 31, 32 years old. Because he's 23, I think turning 24 now. So you have a guy that has already won a Stanley Cup, but he was the backup with Bobrovsky. Obviously, Bobrovsky's one of the best goalies in the entire NHL, especially in the playoffs. It just kind of turns that he's a playoff performer and you don't really know what you're going to get with a goalie.
Yeah.
So I think that it was the right move for the Panthers because they obviously already won a Stanley Cup. But I think the Blackhawks did really good with the Seth Jones trade, getting a 2026 first and their potential franchise goalie. But like you said, I think I was a little surprised the Blackhawks haven't been drafting goalies in the third, fourth round
I
or
mean,
somebody. Yeah.
it's a blind spot.
Yeah.
I don't get it. The other thing is, I think it's important to bring up. You brought up Jacob Fowler. I'll
Mhm.
veer off and just say this. So in his draft year, there was some weird stuff going on because teams thought that he was too spongy and he didn't know how to train and maybe he was gonna, be out of shape. And I wasn't buying it. I didn't buy it with Drew Doughty. I go all the way back to Drew Doughty's draft. I didn't buy it then. I didn't buy it when they were saying that, right? So the interesting thing was I was chasing down Fowler for an article for either my website or Elite Prospects, whoever I was going to be able to get it for, and never could get him. Why? Well, he won a championship. Like he was celebrating. He was doing a whole bunch of things. He called me on my cell phone about maybe an hour and a half before day two of the draft. And he goes, I'm really sorry I haven't caught up with you. Can we interview now? And I'm in like a side room on the floor of
Yeah.
the draft. And I just picked up a napkin and started writing down the quotes on a napkin. And I wanted to make sure I got that article up. I didn't make it the longest article. I wanted to make it impactful because I knew he was going to be the best goalie to go on that day and maybe turn into the best goalie in the draft down the line. And I still feel that way. So it's not just the Blackhawks. There were other teams that passed on him too that I think are going to regret it.
Yeah, that is an awesome story. Very, very cool. I'm honestly surprised that he did that because
Just shows his
you're
character. Like he
yeah,
felt
it
bad that
does.
he could never connect. And he called me at the draft. He had to have known I'm at the draft, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody knows I'm at the draft. So it was an interesting thing. It's the only time that's ever happened to me that way.
Was he at the draft? Did you get to talk to him after they got drafted when they bring the players up for
Yes.
media?
Yes,
Oh,
I
that's
believe he
awesome.
was, and I believe I did, and yeah, yeah, my memory tells me he was there, and so yeah, I mean, it was a cool thing. It was just before things got started, and yeah, he really wanted to make sure he got his story out, and I made sure I got it out too, because I really and you could see how he's developing it.
Mhm.
There should be no surprise. Honestly, if you go look at how he was and the steps he's taken and how he was at every level, really not a surprise.
Yeah, he's performed very, very well. I remember watching just videos on him and Nathan Grav, who was, I mean, he's already made a name for himself, but incredible YouTuber. He said that this was his number one goalie, and I think that a lot of people kind of had Harabel there. I don't think Guyan was the number one goalie. I think he was like third or fourth overall. That was kind of a little surprise. But what he did at the Worlds was pretty great until Bedard undressed the entire Czech defense and did what he did. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. But I got to talk to Martin Misiak, who actually grew up with Adam Guyan. And I thought that was really interesting because they grew up playing together since they were like 9 years old. And I always think that it's really cool when you kind of get like just that information on players because when I was like trying to watch a lot of the content before I started doing this, you never really learned about a lot of the players. You would have to go dive deep. But there's just like we always hear goalies have really interesting pregame rituals and things like that. Is there one thing that you learned about Jacob Fowler that made him tick where you knew that he was going to be a potential superstar or starter in the making?
It's a good question. I had seen him play it a few different times. I think, and he played in big games, and sometimes he even failed in some games. Like remember the World Juniors, he wasn't the starter. He kind of lost the mantle there for a bit. I He doesn't panic. He doesn't panic. He's able to make the big save. He doesn't dwell on the bad goal if he happens to give it up. And so, like, when you see a guy like that who's able to kind of like shake it off, I think that's a really big deal. And so I look at it that way. I'm trying to look at his quotes to see even before the draft if he told me something. Um, yeah, here's one big thing, and I think this is his superpower. He does throw off shooters. How does he throw them off? He frustrates them. And he even told me, he goes, if you're not scoring, it's easy to get frustrated. The more saves, the more frustrated they get, meaning the shooters. He knows that. That's a pretty good
That's
super.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah. To getting the eyes of the shooter is very interesting. When I look at goalies, I want them to be like goldfish. Like Charles Barkley.
Mhm.
Never care about the last play. I unless it's an incredible save and
Yeah,
you want to use that energy and the momentum. But if you give up a goal or a bad goal or whatever it
so be
is,
it.
yeah,
Take it off.
just keep going, restart. So that's really cool. I wonder when the Habs asked him what his animal was, if it was like a
Yeah.
goldfish or something like that.
I'd have to
Uh,
go back. I probably have it somewhere, but I don't remember. I will say this, we'll do one more bonus
okay.
prospect because I really do like Oliver Moore a lot. So let's talk about Oliver Moore. Again, he is a little undersized. I don't look at him that way though. I don't think he plays that way. He's smart defensively. He's getting stronger every day. He definitely put on some muscle. He always had great speed, always had a really good shot, but he was just that all-around guy that makes a team tick. And I think that his little audition last year went really well. Now he's 20. So immediately I say send him to the AHL. But if he fought up his way up to the NHL this year because he was doing so well, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, I think that he needs to do the Frank Nazar plan this year. Maybe you give him a couple games to start in the NHL just so that you get that feeling. You play against harder players and you play him for the first 8, 9 games, whatever it is. I think that they're going to burn the contract regardless, so it doesn't matter if it's 8 or 9 games. I think that they should bring him up near December. I think that he,
He already did his
when the
9, so he can't do any more that way. But you can go up to 32 and get sent back. I don't know if you could do it in successive seasons. Might still only be one. I'm not a cap guy, so I don't know, but that may be the limitation. At this point, I don't think they should worry about the back end of his
yeah,
free agency. If he's
yeah.
that good, I think they just should get him because use him because
Yeah.
they need players.
Well, the thing about Kyle Davidson is that he likes to burn that contract because the players are not as established when they get to their restricted free agency. So I actually do like what they're doing. I'll be quick here because I got a lot of points to make on Oliver Moore. One, Oliver Moore is one of the fastest players in the entire NHL. That's not even in his draft class. He was the best skater in his draft, very elite. I think that he needed to show a little bit more production for the kind of skating he is, especially in the NCAA game. But as you can see him transition into the NHL, he needs to work on gaining a lot of muscle as well as keeping that speed because he was getting pushed around a lot. If you're looking at elite prospects and their projected lines for the Blackhawks, he's on the fourth line right now. He's not going to be able to survive on the fourth line.
No,
If you put him in a back like a checking role, where he's going to be on the penalty kill, kind of in like a Marcus Kruger role. I don't think that that's going to be the best for his development. So I think that going to the AHL where he could be the guy, maybe the top line forward playing top 3 minutes time on ice for forwards, I think that would be the best case scenario. Put him on the power play and penalty kill. This guy has a lot of offensive upside that he hasn't really tapped into. Him and Sam Renzel playing for the Gophers this year or last year were absolutely incredible. They both were good. I think that another guy, Snuggerud, showed how good he was too. I think that they all had pretty good chemistry, especially on the power play. You always knew where they were at, as well as like I go back to Minnesota, not they had just gotten confirmation that Logan Cooley was going to come back. But then Logan Cooley found um, his agent or whoever it was, his team, he wanted to play in the NHL. So Moore ended up becoming the number one center on that team. I actually thought that Logan Cooley could have showed Oliver Moore a lot of stuff, especially in practice. You get to train. So I always go back to that with his development, but it put Oliver Moore in a position where like James Hagen's role, where he wasn't necessarily ready to be the guy yet, between Perot as well as Ryan Leonard, but he had to because that was the Will Smith role. That was kind of where
correct.
he was at. So I think that. Oliver Moore is going to be a really good NHL player. I kind of look at Sam Lafferty as the kind of guy that he's going to replace over the season. The Blackhawks, Kyle Davidson has obviously acquired Sam Lafferty three different times in this tenure. Last year he did, but then he signed with Buffalo. I think that, or 2 years ago, I think it was last year. Yeah, with Ilya Mikheyev, who scored over 20 goals this year for the Blackhawks. Um, I think that Sam Lafferty, with his speed in his role, he's directly going to be what Oliver Moore is going to have as whenever Oliver Moore is ready to come up.
He'll be
So
a
I
better.
really do like that.
Yeah, he'll be a
Going to be
better.
a better scorer, yes, but his role this year is going to
Yeah,
be like a Sam Lafferty type of role
yeah,
where
yeah,
you're on
yeah.
the penalty kill. So I think that what the Blackhawks have been doing is continuing to build speed. And I think Oliver Moore might be the best skater and has the highest top speed out of anybody in that prospect pool or in the system.
Oh,
So I
definitely. I
really am
think
excited.
he could burn. The other thing is I want to bring up so that 32 games, it's only in their 18 or 19 years. So you either go 9 games or you go 32. Once it's burnt as far as,
Okay.
the different levels. And so that's it. He's 20. If he comes up, he's up, and that's it. So we'll see what they do. Uh, but that's it. We'll see everybody next time.